Most of us treat AI like it's borderless. We reach it through a login, it's abstract. But last week, some news broke that illusion in two places at once. In Tokyo, we saw Japan's digital minister warning that the country could become an AI colony if it falls behind. And in Taipei, the bosses of NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD gathered on an island that China has never ruled out taking by force, while 79 Chinese warplanes circled. I'm Allegra Guinan. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Lumiera, and I'm joined today by Emma Muller, Lumiera's CEO and founder. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Allegra.
So let's start with the physical side of things. Why does one small island matter this much, and how is this relevant for any leader thinking about their AI strategy right now?
Every company sits somewhere on a spectrum from renting its entire AI capability to owning a meaningful piece of it. And renting is faster, and for most companies, it's the right call. But it means that you are inheriting someone else's supply chain and jurisdiction, their data rules, and their pricing power.
Okay, so let's move directly into action away from theory here. What are the three things that executives and investors and board members can bring to their next strategy conversation?
Yeah, so three things where the first one, the first question that you can ask yourself is where does your compute come from and what is the plan if access to it tightens? The second question is whose rules are governing the data that your AI depends on? And if those rules were to change, where does the liability land? Is it on you or is it on your vendor? And then the last and the third question is where do you sit on the rent to own spectrum? And is it a deliberate choice or is it just accidental and you should become more aware of your position on the spectrum? And this doesn't mean that you need to build your own foundation model, but you do need to know whose ground you're standing on.
And can we go a bit deeper into how this relates to Taiwan, which we mentioned at the beginning? Why is this so relevant for AI?
Let's make this super concrete. We can start with an analogy that most of us are very familiar with because we're living through it right now. Is the Strait of Hormuz, right? So when it closed in March, this narrow waterway sent oil above $120 per barrel because of the dependency on this geographical region. So we basically had this one choke point, and the shock of it reached the supermarket and the airport, things that are very close to us in our everyday life, regardless of where in the world we're situated.
Yeah, so we're talking about supply chain management basically, and you're saying that there are similar risks that we have been seeing from the Strait of Hormuz related to the AI supply chains.
Exactly, because AI has a choke point of its own, and that is Taiwan right now. So the TSMC makes around 90% of the world's most advanced chips. And these are the chips that train and run frontier AI. And that is also why NVIDIA's Jensen Huang called Taiwan the epicenter of the AI revolution, and also is planning to spend roughly $150 billion a year there from now on. And that is up from 10 to $15 billion 5 years ago. So it's rapidly increasing.
So you've just described that the entire AI ecosystem and build out leans on these chips that are made in one place inside the most intense military buildup in the region. So what has happened in Japan that correlates with this? And is it a matter also of the hardware, or is it more about training the models?
So, Japan's story is about what AI is allowed to learn from. So, here is more of a data focus. And they've just decided to prioritize not falling behind in AI by loosening their constraints on training data like medical history or criminal records. And normally, this is regulated by quite sharp consent rules. And that's also the whole point of privacy law, of course. But there are guardrails here to the exception. So the training data, even if it is sensitive data, it has to be stripped of identifying details, and it has to run through risk assessments and contractually protected as well from being traced back to individuals.
And why are they choosing to do this? Why are they letting developers train on sensitive data without asking the people who it belongs to?
Because if Japan cannot legally use its own data to train these models, instead, it will end up using foreign data or renting foreign models that is trained on foreign data. And that also reflects foreign rules and foreign values. And therefore, a state like Japan would remain dependent. So now that Japanese developers can legally train AI on the country's richest sensitive data sets, like medical and criminal records, that also turns Japan's own data into a fuel for homegrown models so that it can build sovereign AI rather than stay dependent on foreign systems.
Thank you for getting into that. For the full issue and the three questions that we mentioned to prioritize and the sources those came from, follow us on Substack and subscribe to stay up to date. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Allegra.